Good morning, everyone.
Good
Good morning, Rabbi.
We are learning Mishnah Yeshkalim, Perek Dalid, Mishnah Aleph, Chapter 4, Mishnah 1. So we've been discussing how there were these withdrawals of coins from the chamber to buy the communal sacrifices. Well, basically, they never said before what you use them for. We know what that's for buying the communal sacrifices. But now the Mishnah is going to say, we've been talking about this withdrawal of the money, of the coins from the chamber. What was it used for? So Atruma Maha Yu'aisinba. What did they do with this money that was withdrawn? Like Chimba Tamidin Umusafin Viniskayim. They brought with them the Tamid offering, the Musaf offerings, and what goes along with them. Okay, so let's go through each one. Every day of the year, 2 lambs were brought as public Ola offerings, as public burnt offerings, one in the morning and a second in the evening. Since they were brought every day, they were called the carbon Tamid. Tamid means constant, continuous. Okay, so Tamidin were what we call these were, again, all these are communal sacrifices, and the Tamidin were brought twice a day, every day. Musafin, which comes from the word Musaf, additional, is on Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, and on the Yom Tovim, on the festivals. Additional offerings were brought besides the daily Tamid offerings. That's the Musaf. The Niskayim. Niskayim means what went along with them. Along with every one of these carbon sacrifices, went along with them a mincha offering, a offering of flour and oil, and wine libations and a pouring of wine. That's what Niskayim are. That's what goes along with these sacrifices. Okay, that's the first. Those are the first 3 things mentioned. Then we have ha'omer ushtei halechem v'lechem aponim, the omer offering, which was done on the second day of Pesach, the 2 breads brought on Shavuos, and the lechem aponim, that was new ones were brought every Shabbos. Okay, let's go through each one. The omer was a special mincha offering made from barley harvested for this specific purpose from the newly grown barley of that year. Okay, the omer was brought together. Okay, so that's the omer, special barley offering brought second day of Pesach. Now they add here in the notes that the omer was brought together with an ola offering. It didn't just come by itself. There was a carbon, an animal sacrifice along with it. And therefore, the Mishnah, when it talks about the omer, that the coins were used for buying the omer, it doesn't just mean the omer, it means the animal sacrifice that went along with it. The next thing mentioned in the Mishnah that was bought were the shtei halechem, the 2 loaves, meaning the grain for the 2 loaves. On Shavuos, 2 large loaves of leavened bread, they were both chametz, were prepared from the new wheat crop of that year. The omer is from the new barley crop. The shtei halechem is from the new wheat crop. These loaves were waved as an offering in the Beis Hamikdash. They were waved like a lulav to the 4 points of the compass and upward and downward, but they were not actually offered upon the Mizbeach. Shtei halechem were waved and not offered. The 2 loaves were accompanied by various animal offerings, and therefore, when the Mishnah talks about the shtei halechem, it means a shtei halechem with all the animal offerings and went along with the animal offerings. And then the next thing mentioned was the lechem aponim. The lechem aponim, which they call it panim bread, that was arranged on the shulchan, on the table in the Beis Hamikdash. Every Shabbos they were changed, and the money needed to buy the grain and the ingredients to make this lechem aponim, which was basically bread and water, grain and water, flour and water, they were bought with these funds. Okay. The last thing the Mishnah says is v'chol karbonai satzibur, and all other communal sacrifices were also bought with these coins. What is that referring to? So on that's referring to the kataris, the incense that was brought each day on the Mizbeach Hazav, on the golden altar in the Beis Hamikdash, as well as the incense that was brought on Yom Kippur in the Kodesh Kodeshim, the Holy of Holies. So v'chol karbonai satzibur, or in all other communal sacrifices, if that's referring to the kataris, the incense that was offered each day. Okay, Mishnah continues. So now we have the examples that we just gave were examples of actual sacrifices, right? These things are offered that are all sacrifices, But these were actual things that, again, were things that were there in the Beis HaMikdash, brought in the Beis HaMikdash on behalf of the entire community. Now, the next example of the Mishnah is something that is not directly used for the community. However, it's something that facilitates the communal sacrifices to take place. So this year we have Shemitah in Eretz Yisrael, the year that you can't plant and you can't work the fields. Now, during the Shemitah year, you still have to bring the Omer, and you still have to bring the Shtei Alechem. But you're not planting barley and not planting wheat. So how do you do it?
Just growing.
The answer is it's called tzvichen. It's called the seeds that fall down from the previous year's harvesting. There are seeds that fall to the ground and they grow on their own. So those things are what you're going to, so that's that kind of growth that you're going to bring those sacrifices from. The issue is that anything that grows during Shemitah is hefker, it's ownerless. If one of these things, these sviach, they call them in English, aftergrowths, meaning what grows after the harvest. Any of those things that grow even in your own field during Shemitah are hefker. Anybody can come take it. So even though these things are growing and we want to use them for the Beis Hamikdash, but anybody can come take them. So they had to have people that would basically would watch and guard a certain area of Svichen to make sure that they would be available to use for these sacrifices. Okay. Now, these people who were guarding it, who paid them? Where were they paid from? So the Mishnah says, Shoyrei Svichen b'Shvius, those who guard the aftergrowth during the Shemitah year, Noitlin Scharan Mitrumas Halishka, they take their wages from the withdrawal of the chamber. These monies, or actually the leftover monies of the money, right? The monies that were the monies that were in this chamber, these half shekels that people gave for the communal sacrifices, it was also used for something that facilitated a communal sacrifice. Now, the Mishnah is now going to go into a very interesting argument about these guards. The first thing we just mentioned, they take their wages from this money. That means we're paying them. What if they want to do it for free? Let's say somebody says, I want to get paid. I'll do it for free. So it clearly comes out that according to the first opinion, we don't want that. We don't let that happen. You have to pay them. Rabbi Yossi says, if somebody wants, he can volunteer to be a free watchman. He'll do it for free, and that's how I'll do it for free, and then this aftergrowth will be used for these sacrifices. Omrulai, the sages said to him, Avata Omer, even you agree, they can only come from the communal fund. So what's going on here? What's going on here is that any of these communal sacrifices have to come from the communal fund. The money that was collected from all of the Jewish people, and it's from that fund, in that chamber, you take the money. If somebody decides, as we mentioned before, you know what? I want to dedicate today's carbon tamid. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to buy an animal, and I'm going to say, okay, take this and take my animal, use it for the carbon tamid. Doesn't work. Can't do it. You cannot use a privately owned animal, even if it's donated. You cannot, even if you say you go ahead use this for the carbon tamid for everyone, you can't do it. It has to come from the community. It has to come from the communal funds. So these svichim, these aftergrowths that we're going to use for the communal sacrifices of the Omer, the Shtei Alechem, the Lechem Apanim, all these things have to be, the grain has to be considered coming from the community. It has to be coming from the community fund. They can't come from a private person. So the issue is like this. You've got this guy, let's say he's volunteering to guard the aftergrowth. So what this person may do is that
guard them from what?
From other people taking them.
Okay.
So what this guard may decide to do is he's going to decide to acquire it for himself. He's going to take it for himself. You know why? Because when people come and say, I want to take that, they're going to say, it's mine. It's already mine. And by that, he's going to protect it. But then if it's already his, then he has to go ahead and give this grain to the communal fund, right? He can't say, okay, this is my grain, here, use my grain. He has to basically give this grain over to, I don't know exactly how he's going to do it, but he's going to have to give it over to the community, because it's not money, it's already grain. So he's going to give it to the Beis HaMikdash. He's going to give it to whomever. He's going to give it over to the community ownership, and good. Why not? So that's what Rabbi Yossi says. Rabbi Yossi says that even though this, now if you're a shomer china, if you're not paid, so you're on your own. If you decide to acquire it, you're going to acquire it for yourself. Rabbi Yossi says, okay, he'll acquire it for himself, and then he'll donate it to the community. What's the problem? Rabbi Yossi holds. Let me just read it here. So I just want to just see how they say it. All right. At the end of the day, the point is that this watchman can go ahead and he can donate the aftergrowths to the communal property. That's communal property, and then they'll use it. Why not? So therefore, that's according to Rabbi Yossi. That's why he says you don't have to pay him. He can be a free watchman, and he'll watch it for free. And if he decides to acquire it for himself, then he'll just give it to the communal, he'll give it over to the community as the community's property, and everything will be good. How is he going to acquire this stuff? How is he going to acquire these things? They're growing in the ground. How is he going to acquire it? If he buys the ground under it, doesn't help him, right? Because it never grows from your own ground. It's still hefker, it's still ownerless. It's shemitah. So how is he going to go ahead? How is he going to acquire it? And he doesn't necessarily want to go in and uproot it because he wants it to stay in the ground. So the answer is, they bring down here that this Tana holds that when it comes to articles that are hefker, that are ownerless, you can just look at it and acquire it. You don't have to pick it up. You don't have to hold it. You don't have to grab hold of it. You don't have to pick it up. You just got to look at it. Since this Tana holds that simply looking at hefker, meaning ownerless property, can acquire it for him, if he also does some minor action along with it, which a watchman inevitably does. You got to do something with it. You have to uproot this, do a little something with it. You look at it, you want to acquire it, you do something with it, it's yours. That's how he's going to do it. All right, sounds good. But the Chachamim didn't like that. The Chachamim said to him, but you agree that it has to come from the community. So what the Chachamim are saying is like this. They're saying that we're concerned with the following. You're telling me that this person, this watchman, is going to acquire it for himself, and then he's going to give it over to the community. It'll belong to the community, and then the community uses the grain for these sacrifices. They're concerned that the person is not going to do that. He's not going to do that wholeheartedly. He's not going to wholeheartedly give it away. He's going to decide, you know what? Or in some way, he's going to be like, if it's mine, I'll use mine. We're afraid that he's not going to give it over the way he should. When you give over something to somebody, you have to give it over with full intent. And we're concerned that if this person is not going to do it with enough intent to really give his thing away, to make it not his, to give it to the community, which means in some way he still wants it to be his and that his thing should be used, and that doesn't work. So therefore the Chachamim say, we don't let you do that. We don't let you go ahead and take something that you own and give it over to the community to be used for the communal sacrifices, because we're afraid you're not going to really give it over to the community. And you still want it to be yours, at least to some degree. And if it's yours, it can't be used for a communal sacrifice. Therefore, they say, you can't do it for free. We're going to pay you. And what is paying help? Paying help. Maybe he's still getting, what if he decides to acquire it for himself? The answer is, if he's working for the Beis HaMikdash and he decides to acquire it, who's going to go to? He's going to go to the Beis HaMikdash. If he's hired by the Beis HaMikdash to watch this aftergrowth, and he decides to acquire it because he wants to keep people away from it, what he's going to acquire is going to go to the Beis HaMikdash. Since the watchman is paid employee, the temple treasury, even if he has intent to acquire the aftergrowths, he acquires them on behalf of the treasury, not for himself. I think that means that's what he's going to do. If he's really here doing it for the Beis HaMikdash and he has to acquire it, who's going to acquire it for? The Beis HaMikdash, not for himself, and then have to give it over. Mm-hmm. So therefore, the Chachamim said that if you have to pay the person watching this aftergrowth. And where do you pay him from? You're paying from these monies, these half shekels that were given towards the communal sacrifices, is because this is enabling us to be able to bring those communal sacrifices, those grain communal sacrifices during the Shemitah year. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
It seems that we just